Greetings, friends. Welcome back to Embrace the Question. This is our series on Bible study with me. We are in the book of Genesis, only on chapter 8. So we're still very young in our study, although we're not exactly breaking any speed records. Well, just like that, it's 2 days later, and I still haven't gotten to Genesis chapter 8. So we've had a time warp, and I'm sure I'm much smarter. All right, let's actually try to get this done before the phone rings and things don't happen. You ready? Let's do it. All right, friends, this time we're going to read tonight's portion or today's portion all together, and then we're going to go back and dissect it a little bit. That is going to be the best way, I think, to tackle this. We're not going to do the whole chapter because we're going to talk about the raven and the dove. The raven and the dove is a large subject, and I want to take a little time and do it some justice, okay? Genesis chapter 8, verse 1. But God remembered Noah and all the beasts and all the livestock that were with him on the ark. And God made a wind blow over the earth, and the waters subsided. The fountains of the deep and the windows of the heavens were closed. The rain from the heavens was restrained, and the water receded from the earth continually. At the end of 150 days, the water had abated. And in the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. And the waters continued to abate until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the 1st day of the month, the tops of the mountains were seen. At the end of 40 days, Noah opened the window of the ark that he had made, and he sent forth a raven, and it went to and fro until the waters were dried up from the earth. Then he sent forth a dove from him to see if the waters had subsided from the face of the ground. Verse 9, but the dove found no place to set her foot, and she returned to him to the ark, for the waters were still on the face of the whole earth. So he put out his hand and took her and brought her into the ark with him. He waited another 7 days, and again he sent forth the dove out of the ark. And the dove came back to him in the evening, and behold, in her mouth was a freshly plucked olive leaf. So Noah knew that the waters had subsided from the earth. Then he waited another 7 days and sent forth the dove, and she did not return to him any more. Now let's break this down just a little bit. You might have picked up on some language, some verbiage that seemed familiar to you. It reminded me when I'm reading this first couple of verses, reminded me a lot of Genesis chapter 1. Did it not to you? The Spirit of God is hovering over the waters in Genesis chapter 1. And here we are in Genesis 8:1. It's funny that it's Genesis 8, and 8 is the number of new beginnings, and here we are having another one, another new beginning. God sends a wind over the water. God always parts the waters with the wind. And when you think wind, think spirit. It's very much what we are going to see when Israel is evacuating Egypt and they come to the Red Sea and their backs are to the sea and they are facing an oncoming army of Pharaoh. And it says God sends a wind, and it's the wind that parts the waters. Okay? So this is a recurring theme. The fountains of the deep and the windows of the heavens were closed. The rains from the heavens were restrained. In Genesis 1:9, we find that the water and the land are separated. Here we are in Genesis 8:4, and we see the mountains are coming into view. The mountains were seen. There it is right there. Genesis 8:5. The mountains are seen. So again, it's a repeat of Genesis chapter 1. Then at the end of this, we didn't get quite to verse 17 where the animals are disembarking the ark, but disembarking, but the animals are created in Genesis 1:24. So yet another parallel. So we are doing this again. He is rewriting Genesis 1 in a manner of speaking. All right. I also thought that this was interesting. At the end of 150 days, the water had abated. If we go back to 7, Genesis 7, and scroll down here, the waters have prevailed on the earth for 150 days. And now we have, at the end of 150 days, the water has abated. So it's taking, these processes are lengthy. 150 days, approximately 5 months, is a long time to wait on anything. Can you imagine your seasons lasting that long? You do have to wonder a bit about seasons. I don't know what the seasonal makeup would have been before the flood. Makes you wonder. Was it always temperate? Or did they have cold periods? Did they have the seasons like we have them now? I doubt it. I really do. What else do we have here? At the end of the 40 days, he opens the window and he sends forth the raven. So now we're into the raven and the dove. Let's talk about that for just a minute, because there's been a lot of sermons taught on the raven and the dove. Let's compare the two. The raven is an unclean animal. The dove is a clean animal. Ravens are typically black. Doves can be white, can be snow white. Ravens are strong, hardy animals. Doves a bit fragile. Ravens are impure. That goes to unclean. Doves are a symbol of purity. Ravens are known to be cunning. Doves more docile. Ravens are pretty noisy. Doves are pretty quiet. So these are on opposite ends of the spectrum. While I'm talking about this, we keep talking about clean and unclean. Noah, let's put 7s of the clean, 2s of the unclean. Where was that determined? We thought that clean, unclean was part of the law that was given to Moses. So when did this happen? And why and where? Apparently, this part was not necessarily the law. It was a classification from perhaps even the garden. Clean and unclean. Interesting, isn't it? And we don't know because Scripture is silent on that. So let's talk about, again, the raven and the dove. I think what we're getting here are some different pictures. They're kind of nested pictures, to pardon the pun. Nested pictures. So practically speaking, why would Noah release the raven first and then release the dove? Well, the raven is going to circle until it finds something to feed on. A raven is a carnivore. A dove is an herbivore. The raven is an opportunistic animal. It will scavenge, so it doesn't mind eating dead things. Where is it going to find a meal? Well, Noah knows that the last inhabited places in a flooding world are going to be the mountaintops. That's where everybody's going to go. That's where all the animals are going to flee to. That's where all the humans will end up that don't get trapped elsewhere. They're going to end up in the high places. The high places are going to be full of dead things. And of course, it's most likely that the ark is coming to rest on a high place, especially in a more mountainous region. We've already said that the mountains probably didn't look like they do now. They hadn't formed to their current stature, but there were still places on earth that were higher than other places. There were plains, there were valleys, there were some hills and mountains. Okay, so this raven's going to circle until it can find enough to feed on. And that information is going to be very vital for Noah, who is waiting to release carnivores off of the boat. Okay? So that's a practical reason. Why the dove, on the other hand? She is going to be released secondly. She's going to keep coming back. The dove finds no place, and she returns. So he takes her back in the ark, and he waits 7 days and sends forth the dove again, second time, and it comes back bearing the freshly plucked olive leaf. And he waits another 7 days, that's 21 days, and she goes out again and does not return, so that she's sent forth 3 times. Why? Why does he do that? So she is going to keep coming back until she can find a place to nest. Now, if you have doves around your home, you know that they feed on the ground. They don't feed from feeders. They don't feed from the trees. They feed from the ground. They forage. So if they can't find forage, they're coming back. Secondly, although there may be some trees exposed, if she can't find nesting materials, she can't nest. You can't just go to a tree and make a nest out of a tree. You have to have materials to make a nest. And that comes from the ground. If the ground is still covered or wet, she's coming back. So these are the practical reasons. And you need that information before you're releasing any of your herbivores, right? Spiritually speaking, we're getting meaty here. What is going on? So Noah is releasing these 2 birds. Just might be a picture of God releasing 2 beings upon the earth. One is a messenger, and one is his son. Let me say that again. It could be that Noah has painted us a picture of God himself releasing onto the earth a messenger and a son. The messenger would be John the Baptist. The son, we know who that would be. That'll be Jesus, the Prince of Peace. And remember, the 3rd time she returns, or the 2nd time she returns with an olive branch, our symbol of peace. Okay, the raven would be the messenger, symbolic possibly of John the Baptist. Now, why John the Baptist? Because John the Baptist is according to Jesus, he's the Elijah that is to come. Let me show you this. Matthew 17. Matthew 17. This is after Transfiguration. And they're talking about Elijah. And he says here, I'm telling you that Elijah has already come. And they didn't recognize him, but did to him whatever they pleased. So also the Son of Man will certainly suffer at their hands. He's talking about the rulers and the keepers of the law, the officials. And then the disciples understood that he was speaking to them of John the Baptist. John the Baptist is perhaps the Elijah that has already come. So why Elijah? Well, remember in 1 Kings 17, let's take a look at 1 Kings 17. You're along for a Bible study here, guys. So 1 Kings 17. And we have the story of Elijah, who is told by God, right here, Depart from here and turn eastward and hide yourself by the brook Cherith, which is east of the Jordan. You will drink from the brook, and I have commanded ravens to feed you there. So Elijah is very much symbolic of the raven. And John the Baptist, very much symbolic of Elijah, because he was called the Elijah that is to come by Jesus. They wore the same clothing, not maybe the exact same clothing. He had what was called a belt of hair, or maybe yours says a hairy girdle. When I think of that, I think, like a big, gnarly, biker-looking Miss America sash. That's kind of where I'm at with that. I don't really have a clue what a hairy girdle might look like, but they both had one, so that's good enough for me. The raven, possibly a symbol of John the Baptist. Now let's talk about the messenger, John the Baptist. Who was he bringing a message to? He was bringing a message to Israel, who was dead in their sins. Now, what do ravens seek out? They seek out dead things. They seek out dead things. That's what the raven was sent to look for. Is there enough dead on the mountaintops so that I can release my carnivores? Okay, well then Jesus comes along. Jesus is our Prince of Peace. He's our dove. And the dove was sent out 3 times. Jesus, his spirit was sent in Old Covenant times, and it couldn't find a place to rest. It would come upon people like Samson, but it couldn't inhabit Samson. It would come upon David, but it couldn't inhabit David. It would say Samson, and the Spirit of God would come upon Samson in power, right? But it didn't stay. And then Jesus comes, and he's baptized by the raven, John, and brought up out of the water, and a dove descends and lights upon his head in a form of anointing. And then Jesus returns to the boat, to Noah, to the Father. And then there's this third time, Pentecost. The Spirit of Jesus comes and infills believers. And we have the third release of the dove, and it never returns. It's still here. There are some other things to consider. When you talk about peace, this is found in Matthew 10 and Luke 10, both the 10th chapters. Matthew 10, let's take a look at Matthew 10. Matthew 10:11, Jesus is sending out his disciples in pairs. Interesting, in pairs, isn't it? They must be clean. And whatever town or village you enter, find out who is worthy in it and stay there until you depart. And as you enter the house, greet it. If the house is worthy, let your peace come upon it. But if it is not worthy, let your peace return to you. What does that sound like? Sounds like a release of the dove. Let's take a look at that Luke 10 version of this. Whatever house you enter, verse 5, first say, peace be to this house. And if a son of peace is there, your peace will rest upon him. But if not, it will return to you. This is so Noah, is it not? It's all in the handling of peace. That is all that's basically on my mind as far as the raven and the dove. There are some other takes on this. One being the raven is Cain, the dove is Abel. And they are both released again into a world that has just been cleansed. Not unlike the first Cain and Abel. Some of the differences there I just really can't get around. And I don't know if it's a bad picture or just an incomplete picture. I can't quite grasp it. So if any of you have a take on the raven and the dove, please share it with me. Would love to hear it. But that will do it for this edition of Bible Study with me. I hope you did enjoy it. I hope you got lots of notes. If you ever do need to lead a Bible study on this topic, man, you are loaded now, because there's a lot there. And you start adding commentary and conversation into that, and you've got an easy 2 hours on the dove and the raven. But that will do it until next time. We're going to take care of the next half of the chapter. But I hope you have a blessed week, and I'll see you then. Peace.